This is really nice. This is a great turnout. I was thinking with back to school night going on in the different schools and everything else that's happening, that the turnout wouldn't be this good, but I'm very happy to see each and every one of you here. And I'm excited about this project. I'm Elsie Foster, as you can tell by the picture. And I'm happy to be here because here's another great project that we're going to be working on to improve our downtown. This is one of 3 projects that you'll see. The first one was where we're working on Tract C, and then you saw what we're going to be doing in our downtown plaza. And here we have Tract A. And Tract A is a great project that I believe that upon completion, that each and every one of you will be very happy to see. But before we go about completion, we want to show you what we have to offer tonight. Deb Tamblett is here, and this is her project, and I'm happy that she's doing this project in particular. But I'm not going to steal anybody's thunder, so what I want to do is introduce Council Member Matt Hale, and he is the chair of our Economic Development. He's that liaison for that committee, and he has been working with Deb and Terry and Retisha to bring this project, and the rest of the council to bring this project to fruition. So tonight you'll get a glimpse of what's going on. You'll have an opportunity to do some Q&As and tell us what you like, what you don't like, and get this great project on its way. Thank you. Matt?
Thank you very much. It's great to see everybody out here, and thank you so much for coming. As Elsie said, I'm Matt Hale. I'm chair of the Economic Development Committee. I just wanted to give a shout out to Jason Postelnick and Norma Vargas, who are here also on the Economic Development Committee, and Phil George and Matt Hirsch, also council members. This is really a project for all of us. And I don't see if I see Stephanie, but she might come in later. But you know, downtown redevelopment is really what this council and the mayor have really focused our efforts on in so many different ways. And it's really exciting to sort of start to see how that comes out. So what I just wanted to do today is just kind of go over some of the formats, how we're going to go through the process today, and then we'll go from there. So we're going to start off with some presentations. Deb's going to come up and Terry's going to come up and sort of give some background about how we got here and the process for getting here. And then our fantastic partner, Deb Tamblett, is going to come up and sort of do the big reveal, you know, at some point. You know, it's important to remember that all developments take a long time, right? They just do. And so the stuff that you're going to see tonight is sort of the first time that we've kind of shared some of the visions that we've been working on for several years. It's not a finished product. It will be finished at some point. But this is where we're hoping we're going to get your feedback. We're hoping we're going to get all of your comments about your wishes and dreams and hopes. And the best way that we're going to do that is we have comment cards. And they're spread out throughout all up here. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have ideas, we'd love to hear those. We'd love to have those available to us so that we're making sure that what we see as a great vision is something that's a great vision for as many people as possible. So it's, I encourage everybody to take the comment cards and put those out there as well. After our presentations, we have stations that are set up in the back that have some more information. You can just go station to station and just see some of the different visions that are out there. Again, another place for talking and having comments as well. At the end of the meeting, all of the meeting materials are going to be up on our website, so you can, again, take a look at those. And as you, if something strikes you later on, please feel free to bring it back. This is an exciting project. It's a huge gap in our downtown. It's from 2nd almost all the way down, where there's just sort of like this buck-tooth gap in the middle of Highland Park that we're going to put in a really, really nice project. And so we're very excited about that. Again, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, feel free to reach out to me or any of the other council members. And also, again, those comment cards are going to be important. Okay? So thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. This is a great turnout, and let's get moving. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our fantastic economic development. Oh, she's also the borough administrator, but she's really the economic development person. And Terry is going to come up and give you some history about how we got here.
Thanks, Matt, and this is the debut of my headshot that I got at a conference recently. I'll take some comments on that as well. I'm not sure I like it. But thanks for coming tonight. Really excited to get to this stage in this project, and we're able to talk to you a little more specifically about what we think will work over here. But as Matt indicated, we really would like to take a little time to how we got to this point, because while some of you may be the first you're hearing about it, this project's been in the pipeline for quite a while. And so I'm going to walk you through kind of our general redevelopment history, downtown planning in particular, look at Tract A more specifically, and what we've been doing, and how we got to Deb and Tantum and Rardin redevelopment, whatever you want to call it, and then where we're going to go from there. And then the fun part really starts. We'll get to see the project and how it's kind of going to come together. But I didn't want to I want to make sure I acknowledge that this is a true team effort, and part of the economic development team that are in the room helping move chairs around, Rituja Bartek, our economic development coordinator, our plan and then Kevin McManaman from McManaman Scotland Development, our redevelopment council. They're all here, and these are all parts of the pieces that make these projects come together. So I want to thank them for being here tonight, and also for getting us to this point as well. So let me jump right in. This is kind of an overview of what the borough has done to try to advance downtown redevelopment efforts. And those of you who came to our Tract C community meeting a while back, and I'll talk a little bit about the various sites in town, might recognize some of these points, but I thought it was worth repeating tonight. The borough's been thinking about redevelopment in the downtown for a really long time, to the point where coming into the 2003 master plan adoption, it emerges as an important revitalization strategy and theme. And if it's in the master plan in 2003, it means you've been talking about it for a while before that. So these are kind of benchmarks in time, and the idea that we need to look at the properties downtown, see what we can do to revitalize and also stimulate economic development has been something we've been talking about for quite a while. In 2005, the Borough Council at the time adopted an area in need of redevelopment designation for various parcels in the downtown. It did include the Tract A, which is what we're here to talk about tonight, as well as other properties in the downtown, including those in the Tract C area, portions of them. So these are areas we've been studying and thinking about for quite a while, and then the redevelopment plan for that area was adopted in 2005 as well. And I'll kind of breeze through some of these. We had master plan reexaminations. We had in 2010 that also emphasized the need for economic development and revitalization. And in 2016, we ended up kind of putting a new tool into play, which we didn't need to use for this project, but you've heard us talk about a borough-wide area in need of redevelopment designation, which allows us to do more site-specific redevelopment plans in targeted areas. That's how we've been using the tool, but it's not with a redevelopment designation. In 2017, the Borough Council authorized acquisition fund to stimulate the ability for the borough to get a little skin in the game to purchase properties to get the redevelopment process going. Because as you can see, between 2003 to 2017, we really hadn't seen something take hold. So the idea, I wasn't there at the time, but I'm presuming the idea was we need to make an investment in our downtown to make these projects happen. So there was a bond issue that funded acquisitions, and you'll hear about some of the properties we purchased shortly, and that's the fund we used to do that. 2019, the master plan and the land use element also echo this focus on redevelopment, revitalization, and the land use element even goes a little deeper in the downtown corridor to try to emphasize redevelopment in that area, which got us to the 2021 downtown redevelopment plan for tracks A to D. I wish we'd come up with a cooler title, but that's what it is. And those are the 4 tracks that you see up here, although the map you're looking at here refers to the amended plan that happened in 2024. We did do some amendments related to track C to accommodate additional lots that were part of the plan. And we talked about it at the other meeting, and it's up on our website if you want to know more about it. But in general, the plan it emphasizes the redevelopment of all 4 of these sites. Track D, when we went out for an RFP, which I'll talk about again in a minute, didn't quite materialize yet, and we haven't quite figured out what we're going to do there yet, but that's still on our radar. But in general, you can see we've been at it for a while. So taking a look at Tract A more specifically, for those of you who aren't as familiar with it, it's kind of an aerial shot on the left of the sites we're talking about, and it's one of our more desolate parts of Main Street. It's right kind of as you come over the hill into Highland Park, right where, you know, it first went through, is the way I always tell. First went through would be right here, so it's south first down there. So it's dominated by what is now former automotive uses and the gun and boat, well, former gun and boat property, which also had automotive uses in it as well. There were concerns about environmental conditions related to those uses and those of the dry cleaner use that was there, that is there now as well. So we've got environmental concerns, we've got an auto-centric kind of vibe, for lack of a better term, for this area, and we've got a very unfriendly to pedestrians and kind of commercial activity kind of design and layout. So this, for I think pretty obvious reasons, has been in the kind of minds of the governing bodies over time to try to address through redevelopment. So this is just kind of a sprinkling of that. So what have we been up to? And I tried to go back a little bit to at least before my time. And I start this I'm kind of focused more on formal actions outside of the adoption of the plans. But in 2015, what was our redevelopment agency at the time designated HP Redevelopment Partners, who not necessarily coincidentally was Deb Tanliff, our developer that you'll be meeting shortly, was involved with a similar project proposal back in 2015. They named that development team as the redeveloper conditionally, and they tried to pursue redevelopment for a number of years to get it over the hump. The agency and the borough, with support from the county in 2017, decided to approach DEP to get grant funding to study some of the sites with regard to those environmental conditions. So the borough secured grants for 3 properties in 2017, one for gun and boat, which also includes the vacant lot next door to it. Here, I'll just show you on this little map. So where's gun and boat? Over here, and then there's this vacant, it's vacant, but it had a parking lot on it and had tanks on it at one point. To study that, and as well as for Classic Cleaners dry cleaning operation. So again, the idea was we needed to get a handle on what the conditions were so that we could figure out acquisition strategy and what would be involved in to clean it up and to redevelop it. And again, I just mentioned that acquisition fund is happening at the same time. That's why I kind of feel that the idea was we really need to be a little more proactive as a borough to try to make change happen in this area. So moving forward into 2019, we started acquiring properties on Tract A. The first is the purchase of 101 Raritan Avenue, which is on this corner right here, the left side of the property. That was where the lower Raritan watershed has their boat shop in, and it's been great to have the partnership with them to use the property while it's kind of pending in the redevelopment. And so it's been great to see that building get a little extra use for the next few years or so. And then in 2020, we moved forward with an area in need of redevelopment with condemnation designation for 127-1-133 Raritan, otherwise known as Gun and Boat, and some vacant lots on Dennison Street there. That was done after a full study by our planner and reviewed by the planning board. Microphone? Sorry, okay. Oh, it does go up. Hold on a second. But it doesn't seem to want to hold. I'll just hold it.
There was a red light on it.
Uh-oh. Oh, it's just dead. Give me one sec. All righty, I might have hit the button you're not supposed to hit, according to Megan. And I don't know if Megan's still here, but I should have thanked her for all her help. She works here in this facility and have helped us set it all up tonight. Sorry, I'll just double back. So 101 Raritan in 2019, and then in 2020, we basically studied the site, the former Gun and Boats property and those vacant lots as potentially areas in need of redevelopment with condemnation powers as part of that similar acquisition strategy. In 2021, we were able to purchase the property from the folks that inherited the property and by just through negotiations in 2021. And then that brings us to 2022 when the Hanson Fidelco, now HP Rardin redevelopment, was named as our conditional developer. I'm going to talk about that in a subsequent slide a little bit more. So I'm trying to give you the sense of like, okay, we're building some momentum, trying to make some progress to try to make this plan really happen. In 2022, we ended up filing a declaration of taking in condemnation for those Denison Street lots, and the purchase went through via that process the following year. So slowly we're acquiring the properties necessary. In 2024, we had a really fun project. It really dates back prior to that, but working very closely with Deb's team at Tantum, negotiated the purchase of Ubre's, but it wasn't a traditional purchase. We were able to purchase another property that has been vacant, Woodbridge, on Woodbridge Avenue, 75 Woodbridge, formerly P&K Auto, fix it up, and then relocate Ubre's there, and then swap properties. So I made it sound really easy in those 3 words, but it was an agreement about this, that, and a lot of moving parts, but we were able to make that work, and now we have a very vibrant business over there at 75 Woodbridge, and we've got the site hopefully ready for our project to move forward. So just trying to give you a sense for the amount of effort and time we've taken to try to inch this, project forward. And then most recently, some of you may have heard, we've followed a similar protocol. We filed an area in need of redevelopment with condemnation designation for 125 Raritan, which is our classic cleaners property. That property actually, it's the cleaners, but it's this lot next door and this lot behind. They're all kind of bundled, even though the front is what faces. That occurred after a study by our planner, and the planning board reviewed, following the same process we followed on some of these other sites. So that kind of brings you up to where we are now. Oh, I think I just pressed that button, excuse me.
You think you need new batteries for that?
No, there's like a kill switch on
Oh,
this.
is it? No.
And I was warned not to touch it, and all I want to do is touch it. So let me go to the next slide so that somebody else can have fun with this thing. So how did we find HP Rardin, which I have to tell me the backstory on that name.
Raritan and Denison.
Raritan and Denison. I never thought of that. I was like, why is it not Raritan? So anyway, how did we get there? We used the same process that we did an RFP. We issued it in, I guess, December of 2021. And we, for tracks A, C, and D in that downtown redevelopment plan that I mentioned earlier. And we got 4 proposals, and we did interviews. We had a committee do interviews in this very room, as I was reminded earlier. And we kind of looked at each one individually, and we ended up, the first one we designated was Tract C, Youth Garden Homes. And then right on its heels, we moved forward with Tantum Fidelco at the time, but is now reconstituted as HP Rardin as our conditional developer for this property. I will mention one of the things that the conditional developer designation does is it kind of commits us both to working together in earnest to make the project happen. So that partnership is what led to that agreement with Ubrees. It's what's gotten us to this point. So I just want to point that out at this point. And it also helps fund the operation. And that's the skin in the game the developer brings, is to help fund the professionals that we have employed to make the technical work happen. So that's you'll hear us talk about conditional developers in other projects, and it's an important stage in the process. And so where we are, kind of in the short run, just so you kind of, because this has been a, 20-year timeline here? We're at a point where tonight we're excited. You're going to hear more from the development team about what their proposal is and how they work and what they're looking to do in Highland Park, and which we have worked very closely together to get to this point. But we'd like to hear from you about it. So we're going to present, and then we're going to move to the back, and we're going to do one-on-one conversations and questions and answers and comment cards and all the things that Matt mentioned earlier. But then as another step, we fully expect to see that we might need to do some amendments to that redevelopment plan that we did in 2021. We didn't touch the provisions for Tract A when we did that last amendment, because as we experienced with Tract C, we know that now that we know what kind of building we want, we know we have to look at our design standards and more importantly, some of our bulk standards in the plan to make sure the project comports with it. So we'll likely be coming back to the public with some amendments to the plan, which will go through the usual ordinance process and introduction, referral to the planning board, and then back to public hearing, and then a vote with council. So just in terms of, there's more, I guess I'm trying to say, well, it's exciting to be at this point. We've got quite a bit of process ahead of us. And that was not my fault. Sorry. Fortunately, it's my last slide. And I'll see if we can get it. There's more mics in there, so I'll... Got one?
You got a battery?
I think so.
Let's see.
Put the battery.
Maybe we have to toggle to that one on there. Oh, hey, redundancy. Oh, by the way, Dennis.
Yep.
Here it was.
Oh, there it is.
So, and then on an ongoing basis, like this is just, the work isn't done. We're waiting on, I didn't mention this earlier, I meant to. It's my understanding that the Classic Cleaners property, 125 Raritan, has at least started a remedial investigation, which is kind of the next step to identify the full extent and cost of the contamination from the dry cleaning products. I'm not going to try to tell you what the chemical compounds are, but I have it in my bag if anybody's curious. And then we're going to continue our negotiations with that property owner to see if we can find a good agreement. But if we need to, we have the condemnation avenue we can explore. That's in the toolkit. And then we'll be negotiating a redevelopment agreement and financial agreement with our development partner. And all of those things we'll be bringing back to the public in council meetings moving forward. So we have a ways to go, but it's just really, really exciting to get to this point. I know Deb and I have been excited. We've been ready for this meeting for a while. And so with that, I'm really excited to invite Deb Tantliff up so that you can meet her and her team as well. Let you introduce your team when you're ready. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deb. And I don't have a lot of fancy slides because the real slides are really about the project. But I do want to just say a few things. First of all, I just saw my entire adult life on that screen, because in 2003, I was sitting in a construction trailer on Route 18, building Highlands of Plaza Square in New Brunswick. And so that slide was really, I don't even know the word, but the fact that, I just want to say this, as a developer who works around the state, this borough is incredible, okay? Your administration has such a cohesive vision. For 20 years, you have all worked together on a cohesive vision that is not just driven by leadership, it is based on what is right for this community and input from the community. And it's special. It's really, really special because the ingredients of Highland Park being this really quaint, dynamic, suburban downtown and having this urban light feel to it, and just being proximate to New Brunswick and just where you are in the county, there's so many variables surrounding the town, but your community itself has so much character. And it's really unique that over decades, elected officials at every level of leadership have been able to thread that needle and breed that character. So I'm Deb, I'm a multifamily mixed-use developer. I happen to wear a bunch of other hats. I'm the chair of the New Jersey Builders Association, which represents the entire home building industry in the state. I'm involved with a number of charities, and I know some of you guys from other charitable work. Terry and I go way back. I'm on the board of Downtown New Jersey. Terry's former life at New Jersey Future, and she was a shared director with us at Downtown New Jersey. So when I started working on this, Terry wasn't here, and then when I found out Terry was coming here, I was like, this is great. And so I looked at the history of all the work that the borough has put in, and all I could think of was like, we've been married for a long time. I hope some of your marriages are more lucrative at the end of the day. But we've really worked together hand in hand for the last 10 years. The first interaction I had formally with the borough was a walk around the downtown. It was a walk with Phil, it was a walk with former Mayor Mittler and a handful of people on the Redevelopment Agency, and it was, Deb, you understand downtown mixed use, you understand transit-oriented development, you understand downtowns, talk to us. What do you see? What should we be doing? What are our challenges? Help us figure out. And we had a very honest conversation. You have a lot of narrow, deep, individually owned private properties, and that's a big hurdle for an individual developer to take on and have to try to assemble all of those pieces. And so knowing that there's a partner on the public side at the table to help facilitate those conversations, those transactions, was a big piece of the puzzle. We brainstormed a lot knowing we had environmental issues and collectively came up and said, great, let's go to the state and get free money from the state instead of burying this project in more and more debt. And that was a collective effort. That was a collective idea and brainstorm with your former environmental consultant, who now happens to be my environmental consultant. And we did a lot of work together, long-term vision planning, and it's paying off, okay? And it gave me the time over the last 10 years to really learn the community again. I'm a Rutgers grad. I learned how to do yoga in Highland Park. I used to come hang out in Highland Park to eat all the time. But to come back as a working professional adult and see it in its maturity, and from my mature perspective now, has really given me a true understanding, I think, of what your community is about, and how we fit into that. And so there was nothing more upsetting for me as a developer to drive into this gateway entrance into this magnificent community and see a bunch of holes and boarded up, sometimes overpopulated with cars, auto body shops right at your entrance. And so we from the beginning talked about how do we make this extraordinary gateway entrance into our town. As I said, I work all over the state. I work on all different scale projects. Nancy Doherty from Studio 1200 and her team who's here tonight, Kayla and Annie, we've worked together many years on a variety of projects. I'm not going to take you through a whole bunch of things that I've done. I will just be remiss if I did not mention one of my favorite projects, which is an affordable housing, veteran housing project that Nancy and I did in downtown Jersey City. That has this most magnificent mural of the Tuskegee Airmen on it. It really stops you in your tracks. And I bring it up, because of just the history of our working relationship, but every town is unique. Every project needs to fit. Its shape, its scale, its purpose, its end users. And yes, there are formulas and there are variables that have to be consistent throughout, but every town has its own personality. And so what you'll see as Nancy takes us through the presentation of the actual design is we spend a lot of time approaching this project and I do want to commend Chris, I didn't get to say hi to you before we started, but we were very aware starting this design this time around, from an elevation perspective, we knew that product diversity was important, right? And we knew we needed a variety of product type. 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, market rate, affordable. You'll see the project has a handful of duplex units in it as well. Product diversity leads to more housing affordability. Market rate, deed restricted, I don't care. Product diversity and more product leads to more affordability. And so we knew that we had that recipe, that was a win. We knew we wanted the balance of the amenitized building for the end users and the residents, and the balance of open space within our building for the residents to take part of and be able to create a sense of community within the building itself. But we knew we were dealing with a really long block. Really, really long. This is like north of 400 feet long. And so from the beginning, we were always very focused on how do we create this amazing experience and this amazing entrance into town, but how do we do it in a way that it's really kind of digestible and broken down and at a human scale where you don't feel like you're driving into this massive bulk. And so we really spent a lot of time with Chris and Terry finessing and pushing and pulling the different elements of the building to make it different shapes and sizes and create different shadow lines and use different materials and create something interesting that both aesthetically and architecturally was pleasing, but also fit into its surrounding context. We have a wonderful relationship with the developer of Tract, so we were also very aware that there's a really dense project coming in diagonally across the street. And so how do we complement that, right? All tides need to rise, and so where are we similar? Where are we different? Where do we look alike? Where do we distinguish ourselves? And how do we play off of each other, right? And so I think a lot of that approach of what's right for the site, this is a very challenging site. It's very long, and it also slopes like this, okay? And so how do you do that? How do you design a multifamily building with ground floor retail and structured parking that has an insane amount of environmental contamination and remediation issues with it? How do you do that in the heart of your downtown and design something that's good looking and handsome and active? And how do you park it? And how do you load residents moving in and out who's got a truck sitting on the street for 4 hours, right? And so the benefit of the grade change between Raritan and Denison, hence HP Raritan, became a really fundamental drive in how we approach the design. So Nancy will take you through later, but we were able to really hide this massive parking garage. There's 2 stories of concrete of parking. There's a lot of parking. There's almost 200 to 191 spaces, I think is the actual number. It's a lot of parking. You don't see it. You know it's there, but you don't see it. Because all the activity of the day-to-day operations associated with that is going to happen behind everything. And hidden from the main daily activity and hidden from your main corridor of traffic. There will be, and we'll speak to a little bit later, there will be obviously some operational uses associated with the retail, because the retail spaces, the tenants have to function efficiently, they've got to thrive. But we were able to really take a lot of that core operational use and screen it. And so that factored into a lot of the design. Building 2 levels of structured parking is complicated, it's challenging from a building code perspective, it's very costly. And so those were all part of the conversations with the borough on how do we do this together to make sure that it looks good, it's going to operate good, the rest of the community can operate, and we're all going to be able to afford this and do this together. And so I really want to also commend the team at McManus Scotland for always being a guiding voice in all the redevelopment tools available. You guys, as a community, as an administration, are very adept, far more than many other municipalities. But I really also commend you on the professional teams that you bring in, third party, because this is complicated stuff, and there's a lot of tools out there, but it's complicated, and it's a team process. Everybody has to win. And for everybody to win, everybody's got to lose a little bit. But we're in it together, and if we're not in it together, nobody wins. And none of this ever gets done. I also really want to commend Terry spoke about the relocation of Ubri. That was really one of the most complicated transactions I've done for a 3,000 square foot business. And Donald's a wonderful guy. He's enjoying his new space. He's doing really well. I'm very proud of how the renovation came out. I will tell you, I would much rather build new any day of the week than renovate. But that was a really earnest process that took a lot of teamwork. And I think that it speaks to the commitment that this administration has, but I also really would like to thank the administration for the confidence that you've had in me to stick with me for 10 years, and we still don't have anything built. I mean, I think that says a lot of the relationship. I don't know if that says a lot about me and my delivery, but we're in this together. I'm gonna stop talking because I could talk a lot. You'll have time with me in the back. I'm very excited for Nancy to kind of walk you through the process of our design and what this will look and feel like. She's one of my favorite architects. I'm sure there's others in the room, but I really admire her approach to design and the collaborative process that is how we get to a comprehensive design together, because one of the things you'll hear from her is architecture is contextual. And when we're dealing with a surrounding context of an existing block that has a lot of holes in it, how do you find that context, and how do you find that beacon to guide what it's supposed to be? And I think a lot of that, what is it supposed to be, came through from the administration and your professionals about really understanding what makes this town tick. And so with that, I'd like to bring Nancy up because we've got some great images to walk you through, and then you'll have a bunch of questions, and then we're gonna mobilize. So I thank you again. I look forward to talking with you after, and get ready.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Terry. Thank you to the council people and everybody who has helped to get us to this point. I know Chris is here somewhere. We've had fabulous, I would say, conversations as we've started to work on the process. So, and Deb and I, as she said, have been working together for a long time. And working on the Veterans Housing Project was a real honor for us. It's a fabulous project. So I am Nancy Doherty, principal at Studio 1200. We are a New Jersey firm. We focus on downtown projects, redevelopment, multifamily housing, mixed-use projects. I have two of my teammates here, Annie and Kayla, so super proud to be here. And being part of Deb's redevelopment team. So Deb is really animated when she speaks, so it's a tough act to follow behind her, but...
Should see me when I'm angry.
Yes, we don't want that. No. Anyway, so just to get us going, you know, as Terry, I'm not gonna go through this in detail because Terry covered this so well. You know, we have a series of 9 lots that make up this Tract A, and they're in various stages of sort of their rebirth as part of this Tract A assemblage. So there they are. What we do, and again, I'm not going to go through this because you know all about them, so I would really like to start talking to you about the history, and this is what we do when we start any project, is really looking at history. So I am from New Jersey, born and raised here, a little bit north of here, but I love history. I think that it informs everything that we do when we work as a design firm. So we started with this map, which is actually the map of New Brunswick from 1910, and highlighted for you, Tract A is in that red circle there. And again, I think you all know, you know, this is the bridge that comes across, that comes onto Raritan Avenue. And then this is the other bridge that was originally, you know, where the trains come across. So, I mean, I think that this, you know, I want to talk just a little bit about this site and how Raritan Avenue developed. So, as I understand it, around 1685, that section of, let me get my little, you know, the section that brings you across, that was 1685 is when the road went in there. And at that time, there was a ferry that took you across to New Brunswick, so there was no bridge there at that time. In 1795, the long and commodious bridge, I loved that expression, was built. So the bridge that now takes you across to New Brunswick was the first version of that was built in 1795. And that, that's when that steep cut went in, down at the bottom of Raritan, up to Adelaide's, up to Adelaide Avenue. From then on, Raritan Avenue created this important gateway that Deb was talking about that brings you into Highland Park, from New Brunswick across the river. And then by 1905, also just interesting, that is when that bridge went in. So the Pennsylvania Railroad built that bridge. It was quite an undertaking with all of the sort of arches that bring it across the Raritan River. And so as soon as that bridge went in, industry in Highland Park, there are, as you well know, there are many, many industries that were able to sort of exist in Highland Park at the beginning of the 20th century due to having this transportation that got you here. A few of those places, as I learned in my research, were the Waldron Machine Company, the two breweries, the Highland Park and New Brunswick breweries, important in every community, right? The Jane and Carpenter Wallpaper facility, the Highland Park Needle Works, and early facilities for Johnson & Johnson were also here. As the town became more populated and became, more of a suburban town as the 20th century progressed, let me just get myself going here. Raritan Avenue became a robust thoroughfare and had all different kinds of styles, heights, and uses that were introduced as the 20th century sort of moved development along. And this is pretty interesting to me. So that is the apartment building on the corner of Fifth Avenue and Raritan that is still there today. Some of these other buildings are not there. As has been talked about, you've got sort of these gaps in the downtown, which didn't always exist, but as things have progressed, you've ended up with some gaps in the frontage on Raritan. So today, and I think we've seen some of these images already, you have a combination of types of buildings. You have two-story buildings, brick, old, some residential properties. The apartment building that's on the corner of Raritan and Fifth is still there, that Osonia apartment building. And the original firehouse, which is still there, right on the end, 2nd Avenue and Raritan. And so there's a wide range of uses that's going on Raritan, but vacant lots, it's sort of created a bit of a disjointed experience, we could say. So we began our conversation with the town and the professionals, sort of contemplating how to design Tract A for pedestrian scale, right? That was really important. And how to break the massing down the length of this site. Deb has already said we've got 400 plus feet of frontage that we're dealing with, and really keeping top of mind the planning goals that were set out by your redevelopment plan, which Terry has talked about, that had to do with revitalization. And how do we take this suburban community, but also that has sort of a small urban scale to it in some aspects, and how do we work all of that together to create a dynamic project that is also viable, that Deb can build, and that makes sense for Highland Park. So that is sort of where we started. Deb and I have been looking at this site together for 10 years. So I worked on the early version with Deb and also on sort of this more recent version. The other thing is that we were really looking at how do we relate to Tract C and what's going on there. So we have looked at that plan. We as Deb said, she in particular has a close relationship with that developer. So really understanding how the two projects relate. So sort of starting, we wanted to start this with giving you a stroll down Raritan. And as we've said, it really is about breaking the scale down. So this is maybe the reverse of the way you would see a project, but we thought this is really the way to start. So at the bottom of this slide, you'll see there's a series of what we call inspirational images. And in conjunction with Terry and Chris and Deb and the team, we started talking about what would make sense on Raritan Avenue. So this would be and we're going to look at each of these pieces as we go along here, starting on the west side closest to the river, and then moving east up towards 2nd Avenue. So we envision this streetscape as a series of successful downtown building types that would create unique moments as you stroll from one end of the site to the other. The building is 5 stories along Raritan, and we've introduced a variety of setbacks and step-downs to reduce the scale and to highlight elements. I'm going to show you, we've got terraces, we've got different elements that are sort of unique to each section of the project as we go along. And as you can see just in this, we've incorporated a combination of materials. So we have brick, we have some sections that will have paneling, we have different sort of tones of brick, and very purposeful so that we can create a rhythm on Raritan. So let's take a walk along and see sort of how it goes from one section to the next. So I want to start on the west side again. Imagine that you're coming up sort of the steep slope from the Raritan River from the New Brunswick side. So the first element that we worked on is what we're calling these corner townhouses or duplex apartments. So as you look at this, you can see here, we're really talking about this section right here. This has been designed as these are duplex apartments. So they're 2 floors. You can see that there's sort of a light, soft tone of brick for these duplexes. I will point out that there is a terrace up here, so the 3rd floor apartment sets back from the 2nd floor, so 3rd and 4th story set back. And then there's a much deeper setback on the 5th floor, sort of off of Raritan, but also to the west, and there's outdoor space on that top floor. So in both directions, sort of moving back on the site, and then also as we move along Raritan, the footprint of the building is modulated, and to give us these different experiences. So that's the first piece, the corner townhouses. Then when we go a little bit further east, now we're at the section that we're calling sort of box bays over classic storefront. And this for us was sort of a row house model, and you will see on the, oh, I've lost the pointer, where did it go? There we go. So on the ground floor, it was really important that we activate the pedestrian experience. So on this lower level, these were a couple of our inspirational images. Down here would be where the residential amenity spaces are, but with storefront, and sort of classic storefront. So the scale is broken down. It's just not one enormous long vista of glass. It's got, sort of some piers. It has a different materiality than what's above it. And then above it, you're seeing sort of classic downtown elevation that has bays, that would be with panels, sort of box bays. And then in between there is brick, and that sort of differentiates from one apartment to the next. On this section of it, we also have a setback here. So the darker element on the top floor is where the amenity space would be, and then to the right of that, there are more apartments on the 5th floor. But you'll see when we get to the plans, they're set pretty far back, and there are terraces up there. So that was the second section where we have those box bays. As we keep going, when we get to the center of the property, and it is pretty much the midpoint of that 400-foot length of the project, is really the arrival. And so it was really important that we make something special in this middle portion. So if you see down in this image, this is actually now a 3-story element. It would be that same light brick that we have at the townhouses on the western end of the project. We have some soft curves here, those very typical of earliest 20th century apartment buildings. And then an entrance, it was important that we have a canopy that is recognizable and sort of distinctive in the middle of the project. So this would be the main entrance into the residential units. and also how you get to the vertical circulation. As Deb said, you're not seeing anything that has anything to do with parking. We have one curb cut on the property on Raritan. So really working on what the street view, the pedestrian view would feel like. Street trees, which you're seeing and we'll talk about later, that go all the way along here. So that is the central sort of arrival element. Then the next element as we move east is really kind of what I would consider the classic apartment building. And in this section, as we're on the eastern end of the site, down here we would have, this will be a combination of sort of the leasing office for the building and then retail. So sort of classic architectural awnings, the flexibility in this retail space, so could be a combination of any number of different retail elements that could be there. For this portion of the building, sort of similar to that apartment building on the corner of 5th Avenue, it would be a combination of brick, I cheated, sorry about that. So it's really brick, it would have piers, it would have some sort of detailing at the top of the first story and at the top of the 4th story, which is very classic in downtown apartment buildings, a nice sort of cornice detail up at the top of the 5th floor. Again, you're seeing the street trees. I think, Chris, we talked about street trees every 30 feet at, sort of the most, so creating a nice rhythm of streetscape as you go along. And then finally, we're calling this our corner moment. So this is all the way at the eastern end of the site. And this was our element where we wanted to have, I would call it a bit of fun. We wanted something that would talk to the project on Tract C, but a different interpretation. So as you see this, we were using some of these inspirational images. The building actually, and you'll see when I show you the three-dimensional image of it, it sets back on the 3rd floor and above, right here. And down here, we were able to create sort of a moment where we'll have some sort of decorative panel. This is actually right now inspired by your town logo and what you see when you come into Highland Park as you're coming up at that corner of Adelaide Avenue. And again, there will be retail space that will be here on the 1st floor. And then above here, this is an apartment up here with a terrace, and the building steps back. We were very conscious that on this end of the building, you're at the eastern end of the site. In this direction, we have 2nd Avenue. We have some single-family homes over there. And so really, again, Chris, I think, and Terry really pushed us on setting the scale of the building down on that end and thinking very carefully about that. So we're pretty excited about what will be happening on this east end of the project. So sort of putting that all together, I know you're all familiar with this image. This is, we are now looking, as we're coming up the hill, we're at South 1st Avenue there. You're all familiar with the building on the left. And as you're also well aware, that's kind of your streetscape right now. So these buildings, they're either set back or they're not there, and they're fairly nondescript. And I would say the scale, right, there's not a lot of scale or presence from this vantage point. So as we look now, this is what we're envisioning. So I want to sort of step through it with you so that you can understand, and I think we feel like it is a really pretty exciting vista as you're coming up Raritan, and is providing this rhythm and this cadence that we talked about. You can now see how the building steps. So right here are the townhouses on the west end of the site, so that sort of soft brick would be those 2-story townhouses. You start to see that's the terrace. On the 3rd floor, for those 3rd floor apartments, the building steps back from these townhouses in this direction, and then when you get to the top of the 4th floor, it steps back. This is the step back that I was talking about in both directions. You're just getting a glimpse of the amenity space on the 5th floor. And then beyond that, you can see these are the sort of more row house model with the bays that alternate between the box bays and the brick. with the retail, so this would be the first floor amenity sort of retail space here. And then in the middle, you're seeing that's a 3-story portion, the one that I talked about with the curved windows at the top, and this is where the entrance to the building would be. Unfortunately, it's a little bit shielded by those trees, but we thought it was important that you see actually what the streetscape would feel like. You can see here there's sort of variation in the sidewalk, and then when you get past there, the 5-story portion of the building, the brick building that has the retail space all the way along the first floor. And what you can't see is the easternmost portion that has that step back, because that is intentionally stepped back, and again, to relate to Tract C, which is going to be sort of down here where I've got my pointer just over there on the right is the beginning of the Tract C project. And so that's our sort of vision for the project as you're looking east on Raritan. If I go in the other direction, again, I know you're all familiar with this. This is starting at 2nd Avenue. So all the way on the right, you're just catching a glimpse of the original firehouse in town, which has been faithfully, I would say, loved and restored, it seems like, over time. Next to it is the building, which I understand was added onto, and apartments were added to that building, expanded and added onto in the recent past, and looks great where it is right now as part of the streetscape. Everything past that, you're not seeing much, right? Sort of what's here on that side of the street. So as we now look at the vision of the building going in this direction, this is what you would see. And so I'm going to start here. So this is what I was talking about. The building has been angled back here. There is a portion where we have a balcony here, and then there's further step backs. When I show you the plan, you'll be able to see that there are step backs on the top floor on this side of the building as you're facing towards 2nd Avenue. As you go down the block here, you're seeing all of these awnings, which would be the retail space. So, a really, I think, enjoyable retail pedestrian experience along Raritan. It's, again, a little bit hard to see, but this portion in the middle that would have the soft brick is the main entrance. And that is set back, a distance from this portion of the building. And then in the far distance, you see the sort of townhouse version with the 3 stories of apartments on top of the amenity space retail area, and finally the townhouse portion all the way down at the end. And again, just mentioning the materials again, the idea was that the 2-story townhouse, the 3-story entrance, and this portion on the east end of the site would have that sort of soft brick and then be modulated with the deeper red brick that's very classic for downtowns, and many of your buildings downtown have some version of red brick. Deb had mentioned there is a service alley, so that's what's in here, in between this building and the start of our building. And so that's where trash and all the necessary things you need to make a building work, that's where that would be happening. What?
Just for the retail.
Just for the retail, sorry. Yes, thank you. Right, the rest of the trash happens somewhere else, which I'll show you in the plans. Okay, so now just to give you a little bit of an overview from the plans, we'll go through these fairly quickly, but this is an overhead sort of roof plan of the project. What you see in dark gray is the top of the 5th-story roof. The beige color that sort of wraps around here, those are the 5th floor terraces, and anything that is, you never know what color it's going to be on the screen, but whatever color you want to call that, light gray or light green, those are terraces that are on lower floors. So you can also see in this, as I mentioned, the footprint of the building goes in and out along Raritan. Now I'm going to start at the bottom of the building and just give you a little bit of an overview of how that works. So as Deb mentioned, we have a very steep slope between Raritan and Denison. The advantage is that we can do 2 stories of parking. The disadvantage is it's extraordinarily expensive to do it. But what you're seeing here is the lower level with access off of Denison. So the intention is that you would come in off of Denison, and the parking would be down here. As Deb said, we have 191 parking spaces. I think 126 of them are on this lower level. So this will all be residential parking, so one space per apartment on this lower level, and all the kind of necessary things that you need, trash, recycling, etc., will be located down here on the lower level of parking. There is a ramp, so if you're going up to the upper level of parking, you would come in here, and this will bring you up to the ground floor and the parking on that level. So now, if we go up to the ground level, you get a better visual now. These are the 4 duplex townhouses that are on the west-hand side of the site, and they will run all the way sort of front to back from Raritan back to Denison on this side of the building. As you move along here, this is the sort of lobby and amenity space that I showed you with that kind of dark storefront that has some nice column details and sort of window modulation. So this is where you see the arrow is the main entrance to the building, elevators, stairs, etc. So this is where you would come into the residential portion of the building. The leasing office is intended to be just off of that. And then finally, all of that retail space that I talked about is on this end of the building. This shows you, this is where the ramp brings you up to the ground floor, and this parking would be a combination for the residential tenants and also for retail on this floor. As we go up to the second story, this is showing you, again, this is the second floor of the townhouse duplex units over here, the 4 of those. And then everything you see in blue is apartments. As Deb said, it's a combination of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. And these 2 areas